Welcome back to High Gain Guitar Academy. My name is Neil, and today we're going to work on connecting chords and scales. I get this question a lot when teaching people, how do you connect all these things we're learning? How do we put them together to play in a song? How do we use the entire neck? How are they related? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. I think the easiest place to start is going to be talking about our root notes, right? So your root note is where a chord or scale start from. That's the note that determines the key you're in most of the time. So if I wanted to learn my A's, right? Let's say I need to know where all the A chords and all the A scales are. We're talking about A major. Let's start out with just our open A chord, right? Just open A, real easy. Now, when we go to use the entire neck, bar chords are gonna be our friend, okay? It's gonna be a strong ally in learning and connecting everything. So we did the open A chord. Now, as I go up the neck here, I know because I know the neck, and if you don't know the notes on the neck, then you should probably watch my learning notes on the guitar neck video. But if you're confident with where all the notes are, all the frets, then you should be able to follow along. So we played the open A. Moving up, I know that the 5th fret of the E is also going to be an A, right? So I can play the major bar chord there, right? Now, one of the awesome and also sometimes confusing things about guitar is that you can play the same note in the same octave in several spots, right? Those were all E's in the same octave, and I just played them on 5 different strings, right? And I think we can use that to our advantage as long as you don't let it confuse and overwhelm you. So now we know how to play the A chord in 2 spots that sound relatively the same. Now we're gonna move to the next octave, and we're gonna go up the A string to the 12. This is gonna be where your next bar chord is for the A. So now we've got open A, 5th fret of the E, 12 of the A. And if you can play a chord up this high, we can go to the octave of the 5 of the E, which is a 17. Kind of hard to play chords up that high though. But if you can do it, great. You know, my hands are kind of big, they don't always fit up there. Now what we're gonna do is use the corresponding scales. If we're talking about A major, I think it's important to go back and talk about what I mentioned a second ago, that you can find the same notes in the same octave in multiple spots. Now, if I were gonna play an A major scale, I could do it so many ways. Check this out. I could do it like this, or, I mean, it goes on, guys. I got like 4 or 5 ways I could do the exact same thing. So part of this is gonna be deciding which shape you want to use, what resonates most with you, what's easiest for you to play around, and also keep in mind where you're trying to go next. I may decide on which shape I'm going to use depending on how the song goes. Now, when it comes to these scales, I think it's important to know a version that starts from the big E string and from the A string, and I'll tell you why. Most of the time, when we're talking about the root note of a chord or a scale, we're talking about starting from the big E or the A, sometimes the D, but let's just mostly focus on learning a version that starts on the E string and the A string, and then we can generally play it in several octaves, okay? So let me give you an example of that. Let's do the A. Here's an A major scale that I can start from open A. And then here's one I can start from the bar chord at the 5th fret of the E. Then here's one that I can do from the 12 of the A. And then here's one I can do from the 17 of the E, which is the octave of the 5. Now you can apply this to any key, to any scale, any chord. We could use it for a D. Here's a D, for example. Just played the D chord in 4 different spots. And of course you can do the corresponding scale with that. You get the idea. Now, I don't always want to play these things so basic and by the book. This is just to illustrate how to connect the entire neck. So when I'm playing a song, for example, I may want to get a little bit more creative, use shapes that I'm more comfortable with, maybe make some new ones that climb a little higher. And what I mean by that is when you talk about your basic scales, a lot of them are just sort of in a small box that spans about 4 frets. So let's say I'm doing A major scale, like the traditional A major scale. It's all kind of right here. There's not a lot of expanding into any other area of the neck. So I might get a little bit more creative and create a version of a major scale that takes me to the next area. Right? And now I'm way up here. Or I could get really crazy and travel from open A to that same next octave. I just made that one up. You get the idea. It's like there's so many ways to travel from one spot of the neck to the other. So a lot of it comes down to your creativity, I guess, you know, and how well you know your major and minor notes that work within the scale. But, you know, at least using the basics, the basic major and minor scales, you can kind of see how we can connect your chords and scales across the neck. The more you do it, the more you're going to be an ace at just mastering this whole thing, right? So take it, love it, learn it, use it, enjoy. See you next time.